Okay, I'm John Fallon, one of the technicians from photography, and I'm going to show you how to print inkjet quality prints through Photoshop. You'll just need a memory stick, an external hard drive. You can also OneDrive images onto the Mac. You'll see that there's a Mac and a monitor. We'll print from the monitor because that's been calibrated and everything to suit the printer. And I've plugged my memory stick into the Mac that's got the images on, or one image, several images, whatever you might have, and then you take it from there. So I'll open up the external memory stick, and then I usually drag whatever images it is onto the desktop. So you can just drag them straight on. That means you can eject the memory stick, the external hard drive, get more images, whatever it might be. So when you're printing from Photoshop, you just open the images on the latest version of Photoshop, and then we'll have a look at things like colour, tone, how it might look if you're doing borders, the ratio that you might have the image, the size that you want the image, all of those things that you're going to have to take into account when you are printing. So as we can see, that's a square image. You may have 35mm digital files, you might have medium format, 5:4 film scans, analog scans, you might have digital photographs, medium format digital photographs. They're all going to be different ratios, so it's up to you of how you kind of print from those, with borders or without borders, full crop, that kind of thing, because they're not going to fit into an A4, an A3, which is generally what printing paper will be. Those will be the sizes. They'll all be generic A4, A3, A2 sizes, unless you cut them to size or buy specific papers that are inkjet papers that are 10/8 or 12/16 or something different. So first of all, we have a quick scoot around the image. I'll always check image size first, just to make sure that we can actually print the size that we want. So when I bring up the image size here, I can see that it's quite a fairly substantial file. So it's 56 meg. And it's these that really matter. It's the physical size. So your print resolution is always 300 pixels per inch. You can get away with a bit lower. When you get down to about 200, the image will start to break down. And these are your physical sizes. So whether you work in centimeters, millimeters, inches, whatever it might be, but those are your physical sizes. So you can see here from this image, we could print a 37.68 square image at 300 pixels per inch. So you could probably get away with doing an A3, which is 42 centimeters, but you could definitely get it on an A4 sheet, and you would be able to get an A3. An A2 might start to break down. But little things, I mean, like colour, we're looking at the colour there. So we're good with the size. We know that that's going to fit into A4, A3. So things like colour we need to look at. So if I have a quick scoot around the image, because you've edited this on a laptop, that screen is going to be totally different to this monitor, to that Mac, to your phone. They're all going to be totally different. So if we just open the info bar, there we go, and we have a look at the white points and see if there's any kind of colours. I'm just going to, hang on, just over here where you see your RGB, you can see that the white points or the neutral points might have a lot of blue, a lot of green, a lot of red, yellows, things like that. So just to make sure that they're not ridiculously off, because they'll come out on the print as being quite blue or green or red. But it doesn't look too bad. It probably looks a bit flat. I think it looks a little bit flat, so I'll probably add a bit of contrast to it. And you can do this after you've done a kind of test print. So you could print it first of all, as I had it before, like that. And then you can have a look at it and then go, I do need to add contrast or saturation or things like that. but I would probably do a little bit of it now. But it's good to do a test, whatever size you're doing. If you're doing a larger print, definitely do a small A4 test, because you don't want to start banging through big sheets of paper, wasting ink, wasting your own paper. It's things like that. When you print them large, if there's marks on it, if there's lines, if somehow for some reason the printer's not performed well, the colours might be off, the saturation and the contrast might be off, you've wasted a massive print on it. It's better to do it on a small A4 version where you can actually have a good look at it and go, yeah, that's great, I'm going to print a large version of that, or I need to tweak it slightly. But I'll maybe just add a little bit in there to start with. I'm just going to have a little look because it looks a little bit green. Not like massively, but I'll just try. It's just in the brown points, but I don't know whether that's just how I'm looking at it. Maybe it's not. I don't want the grass to go any less green than it was, but okay. So that's that. So if we were printing full bleed, obviously it's square. Oh, another thing to look at is look at it at 100%. So if we go into 100% and we just go in, I can see that it's a little bit soft in places. I think it's the scan that I did it on my scanner at home rather than here. So I'd maybe put a bit of sharpening into it, because I think the scanner I've got at home isn't as good as the ones here. And it's a little bit on the soft side. It's in focus, but you can see that it's a little bit soft. So I'll maybe just put a bit of sharpening in it. So if I go to, where is it? Filter, unsharp mask. Just a little bit to kind of sharpen up the edges. And because it's a medium format scan, it shouldn't break down too much. If I sharpen a little bit, it won't start to get too noisy. That looks better. Okay, so go with that, and then we'll zoom in at 100% again. And as you can see, there's a bit of grain there that you can see of the film, but it's 160 ISO medium format, so it's pretty fine to kind of have a little bit of grain in there, and it's quite minuscule anyway. Okay, so if you're printing, if we just send this to print like as is, if we go to, so this is already set to A4 paper. If we go to scale to fit media, that's how it would print. So the image is actually nice and meaty. It's a lot bigger than an A4 sheet of paper. So when you scale it down, that's how it would print, with these big bars at the top and bottom. You trim those afterwards, and then you'd end up with a square image. It's important to note that any paper that you put through the printer, you will get a tiny little border. So you'll get a 3mm, 5mm border around it anyway. Doesn't matter what size you're doing, doesn't matter what setting you put it on. Borderless, maximum, whatever it might be, the print heads will not want to go off the paper or whatever you're printing on. So it will keep a tiny little generic border for every print that's made. So it's important to note when you're getting frames, when you're sizing up images, to make sure you take that into account, that you're going to have to trim that off if it's full bleed. Now the other thing to note is if you're having borders, which I'm going to show you because it's a square image, I'm going to show you how to do on this. The way I usually do it is I make a new file, and I do it for whatever size paper I want. So if this was an A4 print we're going to do, that'll create a new file, just a white plain file. I'll select the image, select all, which is Command A, Command C copies, and Command V pastes. You can do all of that on the top as well. You can click select all, you can click copy. I think it's in can paste in there if you want to, but that's pasted onto there. So a transform, which is Command T, again transform is here in edit, so you can transform, and if you press Command T, it doesn't do all the other distortions and whatever, it'll just do the scale, but that's all I want. So I want the scale, and it'll scale it down. You can see it's scaling, so it's not squashing either way, and then you can move your image around and it'll have a bit more of a border like that, which is what I'm kind of after. This is the reason why I do it like this. Is what I would do is, so I've got this there, I've got it, the border, the exact border that I want. You might be doing a series of images, 2, 6, 10 images of all the same size, and you want the images to be in exactly the same place. They've all been sized up, they're all the same. You want them to be in exactly the same place on the paper for every print. So yeah, so say for argument's sake you've sent this to print, so I've flattened it and sent it to print, and then what I do is I go back on my history and I go back to the last step, and that will open the layer back up. So then I can this would be another image. I mean, for example, I can actually open the other one. Hang on. Oh. So that image there has been placed on our border that we're going to print from, and then we get another image which is part of the series. So again, select all, copy and paste, and transform, the same steps as before, and then what you do is you go in and you match. I mean, I don't know whether I have, oh yeah, I have. I was wondering if I'd exactly crop these the same size, and then you have to go in quite tight to make sure that that image matches up to the one behind it, and then you can get rid of the old layer, which is the one of the doorway, and you've got the one of the car boot. So then you would get rid of that one, the previous one, flatten again, and then send this one off to print. And what that means is that every image in the series is going to be in exactly the same place on the sheet of paper. You don't have to do anything else. That when those print, as long as you put the paper in right and you've set them all to scale to fit media or whatever it might be, you've done everything consistently the same, they'll all come out perfectly in line with the others. Okay, so let's go back to the other one, which I've sharpened and all the rest of it. So we'll flatten that and I'll show you how to send it off to print. Before we do that, we load our paper. So you would have the sheets of paper, whatever it might be, whatever size. We've got some A4 cut to size. So usually the printer will go to sleep when it's not been used for a bit. So you have to wake it back up. Usually putting a piece of paper and pressing a button will get things rolling again, and you'll hear it start whirring and making some noises. So yeah, it's a bit boring because we're just waiting for the printer to wake back up. There's a roll paper at the back as well, so it's important on the screen on here that you've got the right one on there, that it's set to cut paper, roll paper, whatever it might be. And some of the things I'm going to show you when I send it to print are easy mistakes to make when you send stuff to print. So yeah, so there's different options. Obviously the roll paper would probably be already loaded in and this would be down. So there's little things like that. So the printer's just waking back up. Right then, so you drop your paper in, and then there's a little icon on there that says press down. Now usually it grabs it when you press the down button, but sometimes it doesn't. So I just literally put the most minute bit of weight onto the paper. As you can see, I'm not even pushing it or anything, and I press down at the same time, and then I know that the rollers are going to feed through. The paper's fed through. You could see it moving of its own accord, and then the printer will do all of this business. And just have a little look. There's a little window in there, and you can see if it's perfectly straight or not. If it is a little bit skew, if it's not straight, by a millimetre or two. You can see it by eye, but also the printer will tell you, it'll start flashing, that'll flash red, and it'll say the paper's not in correctly. Take it out and reload it, and it's very simple. It's an up and a down button. Take the paper out, wait a second or so, and then try it again. So the paper generally lets you know if it's not straight. Okay, so printing from here. So we're going to print this as it is. We've flattened it, we've done all of our adjustments to it, so I want to print it as it is. So we go to File and Print, and there's different settings all on here. Don't be too confused by it all the numbers, all the names. There's loads of stuff on here, but if you just follow it and just keep doing it and trying it, then it'll be fine. So first of all, we need to check that the printer's the right printer. So it's Epson P5000, that's fine. Print settings will go into there for starters. And we've got a few different things here. So the paper size, this is important. So whether you're using A3, A2, whatever it might be. Now, if you're printing off a roll, it will be just A3 or A2 or A4. You would have this set up as a roll paper as well on the printer. But a common mistake by students to make is that they click A3 or A4 with no other words after it and think that that is for cut sheet, for roll paper, whatever it might be. They send it to print and the printer starts flashing red, telling them that it doesn't like it. No, do something different. You have to, if you're using cut sheets of paper, it must have sheet written after it. You're manually feeding the sheets of paper, and so these are separate sheets. So whether you want borders, the borders maximum. Now I usually go for that, and I'll show you why in just a minute. So borders, because it's set up as a print, A4 or A3 or whatever it might be, there's it generally has a bigger border at the bottom. So the bottom of a border of anything, it's usually weighted a little bit more to the top than the bottom. So be careful about that, because when you click on border sheet, it will have a larger border at the bottom, which doesn't really matter for this one because it's a square image inside an A4, but for other stuff it might matter. But for this one, we're just going to go A4 borders maximum sheet. So we'll click on that. If you go through here, you don't really need to concentrate on really any of the others apart from these two. So the print options. So you go into print settings. So that one there is the other one that catches students out, because default, it usually goes back to paper cassette. So make sure that that's set on manual feed. And then once that's done, you click on whatever your media type is. So in your packet of paper, wherever you've got it from, there will generally be a media type for whatever paper it is. The GSM, so the weight of the paper, the finish of the paper, whatever it is. I mean, there's been some cases where we haven't had that, and I've had to Google it, and I've just put in the name of the paper and inkjet printing profile, and it's told me what I'm going to print on. So the paper we're using today is the Oyster that we've got, a Permajet Oyster, which we've got a lot of, and luckily on the inside of the box to these, with all Permajet papers, there's a little list that tells you what profile you need for a specific printer. So Epson printer using 7 inks or more, which is what these are, and it's premium semi-gloss photo paper. So that's all okay, and we okay that. Paper configuration's the other one. So paper thickness, we can set to different thicknesses. So if you're doing thicker, almost card, you can set it to 2, 3, something like that. But we'll leave this on 1. Okay, so we've done all of that. Printer info, we don't need any of that. That's all good. Save that. I'll click OK there. And as you can see, by having borders maximum sheet, I've just got that little dotted line around it, which is the generic border that we're going to get, and that's fine. I knew that was going to be there, so it's no different really. Right, we click on, oh, just before I do that actually, your layout is important. So as you can see, I've fed the paper portrait and my image is portrait. Now if your image is a landscape orientation, you can just click on that. You don't have to feed the paper any differently. It just means that when it prints, it'll print that way round when it's going through. Generally, you will put the paper in portrait orientation. It should always have the smaller edge going into the paper, into the printer, rather than the long edge, because it's more likely to be wonky when you put it in, if you put it landscape way around, unless you're using a roll, which you've got no choice with. Okay, colour handling, so all we've got to do with this is Photoshop manages colours, and then we go in the one underneath, and I know there's loads of different ones here, they're all really confusing, but we just have to match up the printing profile to the media type which we had, which is premium semi-gloss photo paper. So we click on that. Scale to fit media, as you can see, because the image of this here has been set to A4. That's going to fit onto an A4 perfectly, so I don't really need to scale it. I mean, I can press it, but be mindful if you are doing a series of images that if you do press it on one, you can see that that's slightly changed by probably 1 millimetre or 2. Do it on all the others. Make sure you either keep them all on or all off. Okie doke. I've left the match print colours off because sometimes that can sap a bit of the contrast out of it. And the paper's all loaded, that's all good, and we print. And there we go. Okay, so once your print comes out, it's worth noting that it won't be wet to touch, but don't start putting it behind glass straight away or putting big thumb or fingerprints over it, because it will leave indentations and it will mark, because the inks will be almost tacky, but they're not wet to touch really, they're not wet, so you should leave them to dry for a few minutes afterwards. But yeah, I'll just have a look over and have a look at the colours, have a look at it compared to what's on screen. Now it's important to know that this is backlit from a monitor and this is a 2-dimensional print on paper, so you're never going to get them exactly perfectly in conjunction to be exactly a reproduction of that, but you can get them as close as possible and get the colours and the tone and the contrast as close as possible. So yeah, you have a look through, and if you're happy with it, then you carry on, and if you're not, you can tweak whatever it might be. So you might go and look at the white points or look at the neutral points and say they're a bit red, or there's not enough contrast in there, or it looks a bit flat or a bit muddy or something like that that needs tweaking, that you can then tweak on here and do another little print before you start printing large. And there you go, that's it, all done. So a good way of doing it is to get this first one and then we flatten it. So we flatten image in layer, and then I'll send this to print. So file, print.
It's okay. Don't worry about that.
I was in a flow then.